Hello, I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and you are watching Tom Talks Rubbish. It's the place for interviews, wrestling reviews, and so much more.
Sure, you subscribe to Tom Talks Rubbish. I highly recommend you subscribe here first.
What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Tom Talks Rubbish, and today I'm back with another interview. As you can see, I'm in my kitchen because unfortunately, the internet, as Alex will tell you, crapped out in my bedroom. Today, I'm joined by Alex from TalkSport.
What's going on? Thanks for having me, my man.
Thank you for coming on. Just to peel the curtain back a little bit, I was very persistent about getting this interview. Is that the right word?
You gotta be, man. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I've had people message me more than 3 times. But I liked it. I liked your persistence. As I say, in the journalism game, I'm afraid that's the only way you get things done. So well done, you.
Yeah. So I feel very lucky that you said yes. So I do want to say, get all the mushy stuff and say thank you for coming on straight away. Out of the way, should I say.
My pleasure.
Let me just move my laptop back a little bit so I'm full in the screen, because this is the first time I've ever recorded in my kitchen. So this is a whole new experience. Do you know what I mean?
Of course.
So if we take this back, you said the journalism game. Is that what you mainly do for TalkSport? Is it mainly articles and stuff?
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess that's the best way to describe what I do. Is I am a writer. I went to university when I was 19, 33 now, so Jesus. But I went to university and did sports journalism, and then I kind of meandered around for years after that because I just didn't, not that I didn't apply myself. I graduated and all of that good stuff, but I just didn't get any experience along the way. So then I fell into all these routine jobs. But eventually I went back to college and I got what's called an NCTJ. Now that's where you learn like shorthand, you know all about kind of media law. And it's like typically a qualification you need if you wanted to work for a newspaper or something like that in the UK. So once I did that, the ball really got rolling. And as I went there, I started to get more and more experience. And yeah. So my typical day-to-day is, yes, just writing about sport, interviewing people, writing that up. I'd say that is my bread and butter.
What sports are you covering for TalkSports? Is it mainly wrestling and MMA, or is it a little bit of football, a little bit of...
I would say it's... I mean, my official title is US Sports Editor, but I would say it's more about like the combat sports per se. So... yeah, wrestling is obviously what I'm known for, I guess, with wrestling fans, at least. But I do UFC, I do boxing as well. If, like the NBA are in town or whatever, I would go and do that. It's not like limited to just those sports, you know what I mean? Like when the Olympics was on, for instance, you might find yourself...
some of that.
You might find yourself doing bits and pieces of stuff like that. It all depends, but I would say the vast majority of what I do is definitely boxing, UFC, and wrestling.
Okay. So if we pull this back a little bit further, were you a wrestling fan before you started covering it?
Yeah, of course I was. I don't think you could cover it really if you wasn't, to be honest. But when I was getting into journalism, I in my mind, I thought, I'm going to write about football. Are
you a big football guy then?
Yeah, of course. I'm a big Newcastle fan. And I played football at a really good level at one point. I played about 2 divisions below the conference, which is what I would say is full-time football. So I was getting paid to play and enjoying it. Well, I say enjoying it. I mean, there's a lot of traveling around the country and seeing some delightful places. But yeah, that was my first love, football, right? But I always loved wrestling as a kid. So from when I was about, I think, 8, 9 years old, I was into like Raw, which in the UK at that point was on a Friday night on Sky Sports, and then SmackDown was on Sky One on Saturday mornings. Like that was my routine.
What era
Watching
are
that.
we talking about here? Attitude Era.
Yeah, so it was 98 was when I started watching. I caught some bits and pieces towards the end of 97, but 98 I would say is when I first really got into it. And I was watching it with my gran a lot at that point, and we that was the ritual, man. Raw on a Friday and SmackDown on a Saturday, and then she would record any of the pay-per-views for me, and when I got home from school on the Monday I would watch them. And yeah, it was just that was the thing. I was such a huge rock fan. When he left in like 2003, 4,
Yeah.
I mean, he left properly in 2004, but he left full time in 2003.
That was after his Hollywood Rock run. Hollywood Rock run. That is really hard to say.
It is, yeah. So yeah, he put over Goldberg, and then I was yeah, and then I was just a bit like, I just kind of fell away from it a little bit, just because I don't know. Like that happens to a lot of people, I guess, as they get older. And then when I went to university, I had some friends that were into it again, and that kind of brought me back. And I stuck with it. And then when I left university, I didn't have Sky where I went to after that, so I was a bit like, and these are the days before you could just log on to Twitter or, watch the highlights on YouTube, kind of thing, right? So
the sort of DVDs back then, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was just a bit like, oh, okay. So I fell out of it again, but then my best friend, a guy called Joe, I went to his house one Saturday morning and he had it on. I was like, who is that? And it was Daniel Bryan. I'd never seen Daniel Bryan before. And I can't remember who he was wrestling, but I just remember watching him thinking, wow, he's really good. But he was also like a lot smaller than I remembered. Like a lot of the big stars were. So I was just a bit like, wow, like, this guy's amazing. So I always tell people, like, The Rock is the guy who made me fall in love with it, and Daniel Bryan is the one who brought me back. Bryan Danielson, of course. So yeah, I've always been a fan, and that was, I think, 2011, and I've just stuck with it ever since. So ending up covering it was just
that was my
chance.
next question.
Yeah, that was just by chance, man. Like I already explained the journey of getting qualified to be a journalist, and my first full-time gig was covering NBA for a company called Give Me Sport. And while I was there, I remember saying on the first day, like, because they covered all different stuff, and I was like, if you ever need me to do anything else, like wrestling, I like it, I would be happy to do it. And they were just like, oh yeah, okay. They didn't really take it seriously.
This during a time that wrestling was not frowned upon, that's the wrong phrase, but like the black sheep of the sports family?
I think it always has been, to be honest.
It still is in some ways, really, isn't it?
It's grown a lot in the last few years in the UK, and I don't know, like in terms of media outlets, it's probably hard for me to explain, but I think the perception has changed and people have acknowledged that there are a lot of clicks in it and stuff like that. But so this is 2016. I started with Give Me Sport. But yeah, I was just doing NBA to begin with, and then gradually, I think after about a year, once we lost our official NBA partnership, they started to go, okay, well, maybe you could do some other bits and pieces for us. You could just do US sport. And I was like, yeah, that's better. And then the more I did WWE, the more clicks were in it. And I remember I did an interview. The Big Show was my first ever interview. And that happened through 2K. They were like promoting the game, and he came over for it. Mm-hmm. And really the ball got rolling from there. Like it went well. People were reading the interviews, we were getting the clicks, and then they just started to trust me more and more and more. And before you know it, here I am at TalkSport doing it. And, they wanted the clicks. They wanted all of that good stuff. And then the radio show, it's snowballed, man. It's the only way to describe it. It was just a big snowball effect, but a wonderful one. Yeah.
So that was actually my next question. Like, you said that you do article writing for TalkSport, but do you have any affiliation with the radio shows?
Yeah. So of course I had my own radio show for 18 months, Talk Wrestling. That was born of, so the first year I was at TalkSport, right? Like they had never really done wrestling.
No.
They hadn't really done anything online. I think the stat before I joined is that they had done a total of 30,000 clicks, I think, in 2018. I joined in 2019, January 2nd I started. And in that year, we did like 13 million clicks. So it's just like the bosses all of a sudden were like, wow, well, obviously there is an audience for it. And I just kept campaigning hard.
Was the 13 million clicks just off of wrestling?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And so, like I said, the bosses were impressed. And I just kept knocking on the door, really, saying, look, there is something here. We could do something with this. And I won't bore you with all the meetings because it's a long story. And, you know, it was a slow process. Like I was.
What's the short version? Or is there not a short version?
There's a short version. It took me about 6 months of going back and forth with them and proving different stuff before they actually said, okay, like, you know, let's have a meeting with the main director producer for TalkSport. And even then he said, oh, let's just do like a little 5-minute show in another show. And I was like, no, that's lame. And then eventually there was another producer who believed in it so much that he pushed for it, and we ended up getting a show on TalkSport too. So that was, you know, amazing to have that. That show was my pride and joy. And it did great. It did really well. It's a shame that TalkSport 2 went in a different direction. So my show and 4 others got cut only last month or the month before.
Was it budgetary reasons? Or
was it? No, well, I guess, but it's more that TalkSport 2 started doing more live sport, so they don't have specialised shows anymore. They only have, I think, the social show. That's the only one. Other than that, they just show live sport. So I guess it's just concentrating their money in other areas and different focus, which is fine. But out of all the shows that were cut, they kept ours as a podcast, which shows you how well that was performing, and, you know, it does have an audience and stuff. So that makes me proud, makes me happy.
Yeah.
In terms of the radio, yeah, I mean, I've done loads of different appearances on, like, you know, Alan Brazil's Breakfast and, you know, H&J in the Afternoon and Jim White and all that good stuff. In kind of lending my expertise, be it to UFC or WWE, just reporting. But I would say online and the radio are two different, very different companies, different bosses.
And 2 different fan bases, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, it is. It is. There is a semblance of synergy, but it's not as linked as many would imagine, I would say. But yeah, that was the cool thing, really, that my radio show for a long time was one of the only direct links, I guess.
Yeah. So how did it come from then to start doing Wrestling Daily? Was it this year Wrestling Daily started?
No, it started last October, I think. Definitely.
Time is an illusion right now.
Yeah, you're telling me. Yeah, so how did it start? Ollie Davis, for those of you who are Wrestle Talk fans, I see you've got a Jam That Jam shirt on, I believe.
Oh yeah, that was a complete coincidence. I will just say that.
Yeah, he reached out to me out of the blue, pretty much. I do vaguely know him. Like, he came on the show, the radio show, a couple of times, and the original host for Talk Wrestling with me. So it was Will. Like, most people will know now that Will Gavin was the co-host with me, but the original one was a guy called Alex Shane, and he owned a part of Wrestle Talk. I think I'm correct in saying that. I don't know if he does now, but he did then. So I was introduced to Ollie through him. Then during that time, I started writing for the Wrestle Talk magazine, and then Ollie approached me, yeah, like I said, I would say last summer, and said, you know, what would you think about doing a YouTube show with us? And I was like, yeah, I mean, looking at the landscape of wrestling media, you know, I do a lot of interviews, I do loads of stuff online, podcast, the radio show. I was covered in nearly every domain, right? But YouTube. So I thought, yeah, why not? And the vision that Ollie had for the show was, you know, in America, Dave Meltzer, and it's Wrestling Observer Radio was like every day. It was like, what if we had a show that looked into the news and we had guests every day? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I guess that sounds cool. Like, you know, just an hour, why not? Let's see if it could work. And originally we started kind of under the Wrestle Talk banner, and then they branched the show out to its own YouTube channel after about 6 or 7 months, which is cool. We've got about 12,500 subscribers now. It's been great, man. Like, and obviously the co-host, I was very like avid that who I wanted to be my co-host, right?
It was
like,
Louis Dangle originally, wasn't it?
Louis Dangle was one originally. SP3, of course, and Steph Chase as well. You know, and I thought the representation was important. And I don't think Wrestle Talk have ever done this on purpose, but it is a very white male dominated space.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's get a woman on here. Let's get, you know, an African American, an SP3, and then Louis, of course, being the young charge, as it were. I thought it was an amazing balance. And now we've got Sati Nyangi, who replaced Louis, and again, I think he's amazing. So it's been wonderful, man. Like, it's hard work. Don't get me wrong. You work those long days, then you have to do the show as well every day.
We're going to get into your work schedule in a minute, if you don't mind.
I don't mind. But yeah, it's been great. I can't thank Ollie enough for all the support. And, you know, because you got to remember, when these channels are growing and stuff, it's people like Ollie and Wrestle Talk that really are kind of funding it getting off the ground. So his patience and belief has been wonderful. I love working for that guy.
Okay. That's really cool to hear, actually, man. So if we go into your work schedule, right, obviously, because a lot of what you cover is on a really, really like early hours of the morning for UK fans, right?
Yeah.
So are you having to stay up and watch this, or are you more of a, look, I'll go to sleep and catch it first thing in the morning?
So it's a mix. It depends, right? So like this weekend, for instance, I covered a boxing event that, you know, was a total farce, but it was Evander Holyfield, David Haye, and Anderson Silva and Tito Ortiz. Like, it was a Triller event, and I stayed through the night to cover that on Saturday. You know, if WrestleMania's on, again, cover it through the night. Same for a major UFC card through the night. Typically, though, like a Raw or a Dynamite, got to catch them the next day.
Like, for example, just to peel the curtain back, because I'm not sure when this will be uploaded yet, because for once in my life, I'm ahead on the content front. But you messaged me, because we were originally going to do this morning, but you messaged me and said, look, with the Big E thing, because he cashed in last night and won the belt, I need to do some work for that, and then we'll do our thing. So would you, even if there's not an inkling, because Big E put out a tweet that he was cashing in.
Yeah.
Right? Did you have no desire to stay up and see if that was a thing?
I tried. I was too tired.
Oh, did you? Fair enough.
I did watch. You'd be able. I mean, you could be able to see by my tweets. I watched like the first 45 minutes of Raw. I was just too tired. Like, the problem is, I've got 2 daughters, so having a family.
I was just going to ask, how do you balance what I would call night shifts with being a family man?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that obviously falls on my missus, right, on my partner to kind of juggle between my career and the children. I always do the school run. Like, I feel it's very, very important to be a present father. I won't go into it too much, but I never had a great relationship with my dad. So when I knew that I was going to be one, I made it, you know, a prime thing. Like, if there's sports days, I ain't missing that shit. If there's an important school thing, I'll always be there. And that's why the school run, you know, one of the things I worked out with TalkSport early was like, okay, well, when you want me to come into the office, I can't come until I've done the school run, right? Like, I'm the one who. So yes, I normally start kind of 9 a.m., but when I go into the office, it's 10 a.m. because I need to make sure I do my family first, and that's always very important to me.
That was my next question, actually. Is a work-life balance something that's very important to you?
Yeah, it is. It's hard, man. Like, if you want to push forward in your career, you can't have it all, right?
No.
Like, so for instance, like I said, when I went to, it's bad examples because the pandemic has slowed down, but I've been to WrestleManias when the kids are kind of back at home, but I've had to go out there and I'm covering it. I'm doing interviews, you know, and that can be tough.
Yeah.
And the same as earlier this year, I went to Fight Island for the UFC. I'm going to be doing it again at the end of
Is that
October.
when the UFC basically had their own island,
Nah,
essentially?
nah, they fight in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah,
That's where
yeah.
they fight. But yeah, I'm doing that again in October. I'm doing, like, Anthony Joshua has a fight week next week, which I'll be going to, and you know, I'll be busy a lot of the week doing that. So it is, you know, if you want to cover all these big events, and you know, I do. I definitely want to do those things. There is like a trade-off, but when I'm home, yeah, that's like my number one priority, and everything really fits around them.
Yeah, yeah. But do you, and if I phrase this wrong, I apologize, but do you struggle to switch off from work?
Yeah, of course. Like, I mean, when you're building something, right? So, for instance, when I joined TalkSport, like I said, wrestling was nothing.
Yeah.
And when you're building something, and again, like, it would take me too long to explain in great detail, but to make sure that your content starts to rank on Google, you know, there's certain algorithms and patterns and things that you need to take into account, and you need to be consistent with your content, exclusives, etc. That's all very, very important. And you can't just like switch off and not do it. And again, there's no one at TalkSport who does wrestling but me, which is unfortunate. I wish there was, but it's a one-man band. So
Okay.
like, if you know, I need to obviously speak to certain people and be like, even if I'm off work today, like I am, in the morning, there's stuff I have to sort out, right? Like, well, this happened, I need this person to do it, and you kind of delegate.
Like the Big E thing, for example.
Yes. You know, and again, like, we have to record podcasts on a Tuesday. There's just a lot that has to happen. So it's demanding in that sense, because sport world never stops. So how can you?
It's like,
that's the
it
same
was
as
quite
wrestling.
funny. I went to sleep, nothing was happening. And then with the way everything is in America, it's like, what's going on here with the whole Big E cash-in thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I mean. And it's great to wake up to. But yeah, I mean, definitely the past year, I've at times I've felt fried. Like, I think my schedule at its worst was obviously working every day, you know, like full 9-hour days. I take my kids to school in the morning, then I go work. I finish work, sort the kids out for dinner and put them to bed. And then my show starts at 8 till 9. So really, your day starts at like, I don't know, 7:45 in the morning. And you don't get to switch off till 9 p.m, 5 days a week. That's tough. And my radio show was 2 hours on the Monday, which is even longer. So yeah, it's just, once you do that 5 days a week, it sometimes you do feel a bit like, oh. And then again, like, if someone says, oh, do you want to do an interview or something? You think, not really. But there are...
In that case, I appreciate you saying yes then.
I mean, I've only really just started saying yes again, because there was a period of time where I just literally didn't have the time. But
it was like, because that's something, and I try not to talk about myself when I'm doing interviews, but that's something I've learned. The more interviews I've done, is like, balancing it around people's lives is hard, man.
Yeah, but then at the same time, like, you know, I wouldn't want to not be busy now. Like, I remember the days where my career, like, I couldn't get a break, right? You know what I mean?
No.
And now, like, to be in the position you are, where, you know, you are so busy and it is fulfilling. Like, you wouldn't want to trade that. You wouldn't want to, like, go, oh, actually,
Oh no. Like,
so,
I said this to someone the other day, like, because you're my first interview of the day, and then I've got 2 more to do. So it's like, I said this to someone on an interview that I did recently. It's like, I'd rather be busy than bored. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know.
So obviously, I know you're a busy man. So to be respectful of your time, we'll start doing some wrap-up questions, if that's okay.
Hit me, man.
Like, can you still watch wrestling as a fan? Or does your work brain automatically click in?
I want to say yes. I don't know how often I get to sit there and just be a fan. Like, typically speaking, I have to write something or cover it, or, you know, I'm thinking about what I'm going to say about it because I'm going to be on a show talking about it. Like, but there are still moments where you do just, like, you know, just enjoy it. I mean, I'm going to be at the O2 this Monday for SmackDown coming over, and I fully plan to just enjoy that show, right? Like, I'm going to have a beer, I'm going to have a Nando's beforehand, and I'm going to enjoy the hell out of that show. Like, I've already made my mind up.
Yeah.
You
But
know,
will you have to cover it afterwards?
well, it's a live event, so not really, I don't think. Yeah, again, I'll have to talk about what I saw there, and I'm sure I'll have to do a show on it, but I probably won't have to write it up, which is easy. Talking about things is much easier. But yeah, I mean, even though I cover a lot of things, I've been there for a lot of amazing moments. Like, I saw Edge's return. I saw the Hardy Boys return.
Were you there live for Edge's return?
I was, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was there covering the Royal Rumble. So even though I was working during both of those, man, like, those two moments, I still felt it, right? I was still there as a fan, like, going crazy. And when I'm in a crowd watching wrestling, I couldn't give a fuck if someone said, oh, you know, you're meant to be a journalist, whatever.
Or you couldn't give a F if someone was like, Alex McCarthy seen marking out at show.
Could not care less. I'm very much involved when I'm at show. I'm in there with the chants, the songs, the pops, all of it. And I think
I miss wrestling shows, man. I haven't been in over a year.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's tough, man. That's why I'm looking forward to going to this one. I haven't been to one since the Rumble. But yeah, that's the thing. You know, it's funny when people say on Twitter, right? Yeah, every now and again you get the whole, you know, you're a mark, or, you know, not even to me, but just people think that's like a derogatory term. I really don't. I think I think it's cool that people get excited about wrestling and mark out and love it. You'll never catch me using that as a slanderous term at all.
Oh, no. Like, for me, because I cover wrestling on another YouTube channel as well, like, yeah, I couldn't cover it if I didn't enjoy it. Is that the same for you?
Yeah. I mean, like, if I covered, I don't know, cricket or rugby union, it just wouldn't be the same, right? Because I wouldn't be able to have the same investment in what's going on, or understanding, or passion. And I think, like, in terms of a show like Wrestling Daily and the radio show that I had, yeah, people wouldn't tune in, right? Like, they wouldn't want to hear your opinions on something if you weren't totally immersed and invested in it. So I definitely think, because of my love and passion for wrestling, it's probably, I don't know, maybe the secret ingredient to what I've been able to achieve thus far.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows?
Do you have moments like the Edge return, the Hardy Boys return, or maybe something else that you're like, I have to pinch myself, how the hell did I get here, sort of thing?
Yeah. I mean, they're amazing moments live. Like, it's kind of like a running joke on Wrestling Daily that I'm like, oh yeah, I was there, like, because I've been there for so many great moments.
What's your favourite moment been that you've seen live then?
Shit.
Is that a hard question?
Oh yeah, there's a lot. I mean, a few that run to mind. I mean, I've said Edge and the Hardy Boys. Both of them are right up there. I was there, of course, when Reigns did the promo after he beat Undertaker. Like,
what, this is my yard promo?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, unless you were there, you can't imagine. Like, I've never heard a crowd so visceral in anger. Before it went on air, like 10 minutes before, in the arena, it was deafening. Everyone was furious, right? Ooh. And then as soon as Reigns' music hit, man, it was amazing. I'll never be able to forget that atmosphere. Also, I was at the Royal Albert Hall when Mustache Mountain won the NXT titles from Undisputed Era. Nobody thought Mustache Mountain were going to win, right?
That's an amazing match as well.
Yeah, no, it was. And the pop, oh my God, the pop was like, you feel it go through your body, man. It was amazing. But then there's moments like that, but also I remember WrestleMania 33, I was on the red carpet at the Hall of Fame, and I just remember standing there looking around thinking, Jesus, like, how did I get here? I've sat down with like, you know, Triple H hardly ever does long form sit down interviews. And I did a good 25 minutes with him before NXT UK Cardiff. And again, I was just sitting there thinking, man, I'm lucky. It's just, there's lots of different moments like that. You know, even random things like, you know, I was on a Zoom with the fucking Undertaker. That's mad.
Really?
Mental. You know, I'd love to have met him, obviously, but still, just to actually exchange words with the Undertaker is mental to me. So, yeah, man, there are so many moments where I guess as you go along, they get more normal, but they never really do. I still know.
Has it become? And I'm trying to think of a way to phrase this. Has it become like? Are you numb to it yet? In the sense that if you see Undertaker at an event or you see Triple H at an event, it's like, oh, I've done this before. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, before interviews and stuff, I always get like this. I don't want to call it nerves, but like anxious because I want it to be good. And I think as my career's gone along, like as with anything, the more you do it, the better you get, the more comfortable you get. So I am sort of comfortable in what I do, but I still, like, if there's someone I haven't met yet or a legend, I'm like, oh man, like, you know, they're over there. You know, even like when Edge came back and I was able to interview Edge, amazing. Like, it just feels, you know, like a childhood hero of mine. So all things like that, like the coolness factor never ever wears off for me. I do my best to never be like, but at the same time, I'm always very aware of like what I'm getting to do is cool.
What has been your biggest moment?
Ooh. What, like, you mean like people I've met, sort of thing?
Either people you've met or like just events you've been at.
I mean, I interviewed. I want to say this was in 2017 or 18. I interviewed Floyd Mayweather, which was pretty cool.
Wow.
Like he like I always make this like Dave Chappelle joke, but like he walked into this room, there was like an aura around him, like, you know what I mean, like, like if he moved, it was like everyone was silent, like, oh, it's Floyd Mayweather. So that, but he was really nice to me, funnily enough. Obviously I was being at Fight Island this year, like, and speaking to Conor McGregor, like, just some of the stars I've been sort of blessed enough to speak to. It's wild. And like, you know, sometimes your heart is like coming out your chest before you speak to them. That's what it was like with Conor McGregor and Dana White. But yeah, it's probably the Triple H sit down interview is normally the one I go back to, and I'm like, because the night before, I was like going out of my mind. I couldn't sleep. I was like, oh man, I hope I nail this, because it was like a really big deal.
I've had that a few times.
Getting to sit down with him, like I said, not many people get that amount of time and access to him. And I was like, man, I need to nail this. And I had like a list of questions, and I hardly ever do this. I had like a list of questions. Normally I have like notes and events and things that I want to touch on, and I'll be like, this will be cool, this will be cool. And I'm always thinking of like my editorial hat. With Triple H, I was like, man, like, you know, I know his career so well, all of the stuff that he does.
Was he one of your favourites as a kid as well?
Nah, I fucking hated him because I love The Rock. But
in the right way, I suppose.
Yes, that's what I said. I mean, I told this to him in the interview. I said, I hated you as a kid, but obviously he would take that as a compliment. That's what he wanted, right? But I was really like meticulous about that interview, and I was thinking, I really don't want to forget anything. And it was so amazing when the interview came out and snippets of it, and like people were inboxing me being like, that was great. You know, like, I think I've got like over 25,000 followers now, but then I had like not even 2,000. And I think that was one of the first things that really got me noticed by a lot of people.
So as we wrap this up, the question I always end with is, obviously, because of the way the world is right now, with YouTube, podcasts, even TV, we're all going to sort of live forever in some ways, right?
Right, yeah.
I know it's a very weird way of saying it, but I have a very weird brain. But what is one video that you're like, if people want to see my work, they should definitely check that out? And then what is one that you're like, please don't watch that. I don't like that.
I mean, the Triple H interview is great, in my humble opinion. It's one of the best kind of sit downs I've ever done in long form. Jesus, that's a tough question. That's a good question. I mean, in terms of don't watch, I mean, there are lots of stuff in my early career interview wise. Like I said this earlier in terms of reps and doing things more, you get better. I look at some of my early interviews and I think, oh man, like just the way I've learned to talk is so vastly superior to how it was when I started. Like, wow. You know, there's a couple I think I've said this in other places before, but there are a couple of like redos I'd love. Because when I was interviewing for Give Me Sport, I did it's hard to explain, but at TalkSport, I get to decide what I say in the interview. But when I worked for Give Me Sport, it was very socially driven. So they were, let's do some cool, funny things. And, you know, we'll put it on social media and it will do well.
No.
Some of them were just shite. And I wish that I'd had the presence of mind to be like, no. But I didn't. I was very young in the game at that point. And some of them sucked so bad. Like, I won't go again, not too much detail, but I did one with Samoa Joe, and it was the first time I'd ever got to speak to Samoa Joe. And I was really excited, big fan. And we tried doing this whole like Twitter game with him, and he tried to make it funny, like, which is even worse. Like, because the game just wasn't good. It wasn't his fault, but like, he was trying hard as well, which made me feel even worse. I was like, oh man, I've had to put you through this crap. So for years, I like really, really wanted to interview Samoa Joe again, just because I wanted to right that wrong. I got to in the end, but still, yeah, there's a couple like that I wish I could scratch from the record. But you know, basically, a lot of my interview work these days, you know, AJ Styles last year was really great, and you know, like, as I've said, Triple H, and there are many others I'm very proud of. R-Truth's a great interview that I did as well. Like, that guy's super great. Those are the things that I would think people could always go back to and be like, yeah, this, and there's so much good stuff come out of the interviews. Yeah. To be honest, like, that's my favorite part of my quote unquote body of work, is my interviews.
To be honest, man, I think that's a beautiful way to end it. So I want to say thank you for coming on, Alex. Obviously, check out TalkSport, check out Wrestling Daily, and subscribe to me while you're there. So I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Cheerio.